I landed just after sunrise, suitcase wheels rattling behind me as I walked through the cemetery gates. My plan had been simple: drop by my father's grave before heading home after a year abroad. Instead, 10 minutes later, I found myself frozen in front of a polished granite headstone with my own name carved into it. Same birth date. A date of death marked 6 months earlier. Someone had even placed white lilies and a framed photo of me I hadn't seen in years. The cold morning air stung as I stepped closer, convinced my tired eyes were playing tricks. But the letters didn't blur. They were sharp, etched with care. The soil was darker than the other plots, freshly turned, and the brass vase still held water. I reached out, touched the smooth stone, then pulled back quickly, as if the engraving might burn. My heart pounded as I lifted the photo. It was me at 20, wearing a denim jacket I lost years ago. On the back of the frame, a strip of tape bore a number I didn't recognize. Beside the flowers, a laminated obituary claimed I'd died in a house incident under investigation. The address was mine, but nothing like that had ever happened. I'd been living overseas, alive, working, saving for my return. "Can I help you?" a voice called. I turned to see the groundskeeper, bundled in a heavy jacket. He stopped when I pointed at the grave. "That's me," I said. "I'm not dead." His face tightened. Burial was in January. A woman arranged everything, paid in cash. "What woman?" I asked, but he only shrugged. "She cried the whole time, said she was family." The ground beneath me seemed to tilt. I had no signal on my phone, but I tried anyway. Dad, my aunt, old friends, voicemail. Every call dropped before it connected. I scanned the obituary again. There was a funeral home name and a case number. Proof someone had filed documents, signed papers, and told the world I no longer existed. Then I noticed something else. A small engraving at the corner of the stone, 2 unfamiliar initials linked by a dot. They weren't mine. They weren't anyone in my family. My grip on the suitcase handle trembled. This wasn't a prank. It was too organized, too official. Someone had erased me and replaced me with a story. As I turned to leave, a figure blocked the path. An older woman, clutching her bag to her chest, eyes fixed on the headstone. She whispered, almost like she'd rehearsed it. "You came back." "Do I know you?" I asked. Her gaze flicked to the photo on the grave, then back to me. "You should," she said. "I signed your death certificate." The woman's words clung to me like frost. "I signed your death certificate." Before I could speak again, she turned and walked quickly down the path, vanishing between headstones as if she knew I wouldn't follow. My chest tightened. If she truly had signed those papers, then someone had forged my identity, legally, permanently. I forced my legs to move. Henderson and Sons Funeral Home sat just beyond the cemetery gates, a low brick building with tinted windows and a faded sign. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lilies and furniture polish. A receptionist looked up, polite but cautious. "I need records," I said, placing my passport on the counter. "This says I've been buried here." Her brow furrowed. She disappeared into the back, returning with a folder stamped with my full name. The sight of it, official, ordinary, made my hands shake. She slid it across carefully, as though she wasn't supposed to. "I shouldn't be giving you this," she murmured. "But you look exactly like her." Inside were typed forms: burial permit, cause of death, service arrangements. At the bottom of every page, a shaky signature in my name. It wasn't mine. The handwriting curved wrong, the strokes hesitant. Attached was a copy of an ID card with my photo, but not the one in my passport. It was a cropped picture from that same college event, the one framed on the grave. "Who filed this?" I asked. She pointed to the arranger's line. The signature was just 2 initials, the same ones carved at the corner of the stone. "Did you see this person?" She shook her head. "All handled by phone. A courier delivered the cash. No credit cards, no checks." I swallowed hard. Someone had built an entire paper trail proving I was dead. But why? To erase me? To replace me? Or to cover something I hadn't yet discovered? In the back of the file, clipped to the obituary, draft, was a police note. House fire. Unoccupied at time of discovery. Possible witness. Male, mid-40s, dark coat. Left scene before officers arrived. The receptionist leaned closer. "You need to be careful," she whispered. "2 men came last week asking to see this file. I told them it was sealed." "What did they look like?" "Both in dark coats. They didn't leave names." I closed the folder, pulse hammering. Whoever orchestrated this had help, and they were still watching. As I stepped outside with the file tucked under my arm, a car engine roared to life down the street. A black sedan pulled away from the curb, slow enough for me to catch the glint of someone's eyes in the rear window, watching me. I gripped my suitcase tighter. If they thought I was still buried under that headstone, they were wrong. I was alive. And now I needed to know who had gone to such lengths to convince the world otherwise. By the time I reached my street, dusk had already swallowed most of the neighborhood. The house I'd grown up in looked the same from the outside. Same chipped mailbox, same porch light flickering. But standing at the gate, I noticed something new. A black lock on the door I'd never installed. I pressed the handle. Locked. I circled around, suitcase dragging on the uneven pavement, and slipped into the backyard. The kitchen window I used to climb through as a teenager was slightly open. My pulse raced. I pushed it up quietly and crawled inside. The first thing I noticed was silence. Too complete. No hum from the fridge, no ticking from the hallway clock. I pulled my phone out and switched on the flashlight. The beam slid across the living room walls. My family photos were gone. Every frame, every album, stripped. In their place, blank hooks and squares of lighter paint. Upstairs, the floorboards creaked. I froze, breath caught in my chest. Someone else was here. I climbed slowly, one step at a time, until I reached the landing. My bedroom door was half open. Inside, the air smelled faintly of smoke, as if clothes had been burned recently. I pushed the door wider and saw a figure seated at my old desk, back turned, shoulders stiff. "Who are you?" My voice cracked. The chair swiveled. A man in his 40s, dark coat still on, face pale under the light. His eyes fixed on me without surprise. "You shouldn't have come back," he said. My grip tightened on the phone. "Why is there a grave with my name on it?" He studied me for a moment, then gave a small, tired smile. "Because you were supposed to stay gone." I took a step back, but he raised a hand. "Don't call anyone. They won't believe you. The paperwork is clean. As far as the world knows, you died in that fire." "What fire?" "The one they staged at this house. An empty shell, easy to explain away." I searched his face, desperate for recognition, but found none. "Who sent you?" He didn't answer, Instead, he slid an envelope across the desk. "Read this, and you'll understand." My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a death certificate, my name printed neatly, and beneath it, signed by the woman I'd seen in the cemetery. "She was family to you, wasn't she?" he said quietly. I looked up, but he was already on his feet, stepping toward the open window. "Wait!" He climbed onto the sill, glanced back once, and dropped into the darkness. By the time I reached the window, the yard was empty. I clutched the paper, my own death certificate signed and stamped, proof I no longer existed, and yet someone had gone to great lengths to make it so. The death certificate burned in my hands as I made my way back to the funeral home the next morning. I demanded to see the full file. The director hesitated, then finally led me into a back office. The file was thicker than before. At the top was a legal declaration signed by my aunt, my father's sister. She'd claimed my body, arranged the funeral, and closed my bank account with power of attorney. I stared at her signature, my chest hollowing. My aunt had raised me after my mother left. She had keys to the house, access to old photos, even copies of my ID. She had been family, my only safety net, and she had buried me alive on paper. The director looked uneasy. "She insisted it was urgent," he said. "Said you died overseas and the remains had been cremated before transport." My hands clenched. Lies stacked on lies, all signed with the name of the woman who once called me her child. I left before the director could say more and went straight to her house. The curtains were drawn, but her car sat in the driveway. I knocked until the door cracked open. My aunt stood there, older than I remembered, but her eyes still sharp. "You weren't supposed to come back," she said flatly. "Why?" My voice trembled. "Why erase me?" She stepped aside, motioning me in. The living room was stripped bare, boxes stacked against the walls. "Your father's debt," she said finally. "The only way to protect the house, the family name, was to make you disappear. They wanted someone to pay, and you were easiest." "You mean you sold me out?" I shot back. "You stole everything." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I kept the house, the accounts. It's mine now. You were gone a year. You could have stayed gone forever." I pulled the forged documents from my bag and threw them on her table. "Not anymore. I'm alive, and I can prove it." For a moment, fear flickered in her eyes. She reached for the papers, but I held them back. "No more lies. You buried me, but you don't get to keep me dead." I left her standing there, clutching nothing. The weight I'd carried since seeing that grave began to lift. Outside, the morning sun broke through the clouds. For the first time since stepping off that plane, I felt air fill my lungs freely. At City Hall, I filed for a legal correction of death records. It would take time, endless forms and questions, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had the truth, and I had myself. As I walked out, my phone finally buzzed. Messages from old friends, people who thought I was gone forever. One simply read, "We're glad you're back." I smiled. They had tried to erase me, but I was here, alive, and I was never letting anyone write my ending again.